Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Chugging right along in Season 1, today we're reviewing Sandy's Rocket and Squeaky Boots. Fitting that these sister episodes have some sibilance, ain't it? And these are 2 very fun episodes, so I'm looking forward to getting my thoughts out about them. And y'all know the drill by now. As per usual, I just want to thank you to everyone who's been watching, liking, and commenting on these videos. There seems to be a pretty dedicated group of y'all, and I just want you guys to know that I appreciate every one of you. All right, I think that's all for this little intro, so let's just get right into these episodes. Starting us off today, we've got Sandy's Rocket. And you know, this is a pretty interesting episode to review. So back when I was writing the forum version of this review, my first impulse was to rate this episode super highly and spend my time talking about how much I absolutely love this episode. But then I gave it some further thought and consideration, which led me to remember that there's a whole 3 or 4 minutes of the episode before SpongeBob and Patrick start alien hunting, and unfortunately, those 3 or 4 minutes are not SpongeBob SquarePants' best material. So I guess moving on into getting into the nitty-gritty of Sandy's Rocket, let me start getting into just what the issue is with these first few minutes. So the main problem here is that this episode starts off a bit slow. And that's not to say it's not entertaining, because it's not unentertaining by any means, but it is a bit dull and without many great jokes. But I mean, there is some good stuff here. I appreciate that this episode features Sandy again, because I love Sandy, and as I've made clear before, the show has not had a great history of featuring all of its ensemble cast until recently. Sandy is at the tail end of people who are featured a lot, basically. Mrs. Puff and Pearl are never really featured. But anyway, this episode also shows off her scientific side, which hadn't really been seen in her first 2 appearances in Tea at the Tree Dome and Ripped Pants. And I mean, I guess there's hints of it in Tea at the Tree Dome, if you guys remember my whole polyurethane thing. But anyway, obviously we didn't really get to the point of Sandy building a whole rocket to conduct geological research. However, while I appreciate that aspect of the episode with having Sandy be a scientist, it doesn't exactly lend itself to comedy. So, you know, it's a thing I like, but that doesn't really make the episode more hilarious to me. And another thing I like in these first few minutes is SpongeBob trying to convince Sandy to let him come with her. It's not particularly funny, but it is fun to watch. The Whirlybird incident joke, that joke doesn't really make me laugh, but it's entertaining because it gets me questioning, just what happened to make SpongeBob have to dig all those graves. I will say, though, SpongeBob's reasoning for aliens existing is pretty funny, has a good example of the arson, murder, and jaywalking trope. And yeah, okay, I'm a TV tropes reader. What can I say? Love that website. I love reading about all the tropes, so I will be dropping tropes when I feel like it. Anyway, to bring it back, these first few minutes still remain kind of dull, even with these nice moments here and there. And a little later, when SpongeBob and Patrick are in the rocket ship before taking off, this scene's fun, but it gets a little repetitive after a while. Though I will say that the part when SpongeBob and Patrick take off and Sandy wakes up and realizes what's happening usually gets a good laugh out of me. Just the sheer doneness Sandy exudes is amazing. And that's a pretty good note to end on for these first few minutes, because once SpongeBob and Patrick take off, the episode also takes off. So SpongeBob and Patrick in space is a fun sequence, and I love the way the atmosphere is cultivated once they crash land in Bikini Bottom. The music here is great, and the real standout is, as per usual, the beautiful backgrounds. This episode has a lot of great background art. There aren't very many episodes that take place almost entirely at night like Sandy's Rocket does, so it's real nice to see the background art of nighttime shine here. Another thing that picks up with the atmosphere in these remaining 7 to 8 minutes of the episode are also the jokes. They start coming rapid fire by season 1 standards, which means not that fast, and they start coming at a higher quality as well. So now, of course, as CEO of Gary the Snail, I have to voice my sincere discontent with SpongeBob's capturing of his pet snail. Sorry, I'm a very unserious person. I just need to point that out. But in all seriousness, I do love how convinced SpongeBob is of all like, all of this being the work of aliens, like, that they're in an alternate Bikini Bottom, like, projected off of their memories or whatever. His determination to, like, capture the aliens is pretty funny. Maybe because I'd never, like, really thought of SpongeBob as such a hardcore alien believer. I don't know. It's just, like, it doesn't seem like him, but it also seems very much him. Moving on a little bit, the part with Squidward is funny, even if it does go on for a little bit too long. It's more like the beginning of that scene when they were praising Squidward that goes on a little too long, but like especially once like SpongeBob and Patrick start freaking out, like this part's really funny. And the montage of everyone being captured is great as well, because there's some really funny visual jokes in there. And also, fun little tidbit about this montage, the scene features the debut of an iconic character, Flats the Flounder. Yep, that's right, SpongeBob snatched him right up in his bathroom of all places. No wonder he wanted to kick SpongeBob's butt with no preamble, as Twitter likes to remind me every month. He never forgave, he never forgot. Anyway, I also quite enjoyed SpongeBob and Patrick turning at each other near the end of the episode. Like, Patrick really like kind of created a monster here by feeding SpongeBob's alien paranoia early in the episode. So that's a little bit of universal justice for him, I guess. And, you know, now that I'm really starting to think about all the subtle intricacies of the writing, like not just in this episode, but in so many SpongeBob SquarePants episodes, like sometimes I just think about how these episodes, like, they have like real plots. Like, they're comedic, but there is real writing here. Like, I don't really know how to word what I mean. I mean, like, of course they have plots. Like, they're pieces of writing. It's just, like, I don't know. Like, the fact is, I think this is a well-written show. Boom. There. My point. Anyway, I just had a couple more things I wanted to bring up about the ending bit of this episode. First off, I think the, like, it's me that's got me. Like, that's such a memorable line, at least for me. Bill Foggerbachi's delivery, just perfect. Honestly, I really love Patrick's season 1 voice, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, all Patrick voices are great to me, but, like, there's something special about season 1's. It's kind of like Fairly Odd Parents, like, and how Cosmo's voice changed over time. Except SpongeBob SquarePants is not nearly as egregious with that change, at least to me. I guess I'm in a tangent mood. Oh my god, what is that? Tangent number 3? I don't know. The last thing I wanted to say about the episode itself is that I think it has like a great stinger ending. It's a very memorable ending too. You know, I love the SpongeBob, the aliens would like to have a word with you. Like, that's so memorable to me. I can like hear it in my head right now. It's far too memorable of an ending for an episode that's kind of forgotten, which I think is a little sad. I went on a lot more tangents than I expected in this review. Oh my god. So let me just sum up my thoughts on Sandy's Rocket a little more explicitly than usual, just in case anyone forgot all of my points. So Sandy's Rocket is a pretty good episode. Although the first few minutes are slow enough to get this episode potentially in the good or even okay tier, like, the remainder of this episode really picks things up for it, and so those minutes kind of redeem the whole thing in my eyes. And even when the episode picks up, Sandy's Rocket is undoubtedly a slow atmosphere-building episode, which isn't everyone's style, but it is my style. It works well enough for me. So that is why I'm putting this episode right up there in my great tier, with a score of 8 out of 10. Moving right along to our next review, we've got Squeaky Boots, a very well-known episode of SpongeBob SquarePants made quite relevant again with the new big red boots going around, especially once someone tweeted about those boots but in black. I'm gonna drop some tweets about that in the description because they're funny to me. And like, okay, real quick, but like speaking of those boots, like no one asked, I'm sharing my thoughts anyway, but like I think they're hilarious. Like, we need more stupid clothing. Like, I don't know, I just think they're so funny, like the Astro Boy type fit, like the boots type fit. Like, what is going on? I don't know. I think they're hilarious. Okay, so with that aside, let me get into the episode proper. Even though this episode is a borderline iconic one, I don't think that I have the same love for it that other people do. I don't dislike Squeaky Boots by any mean. I think it's rather good, but I do think that compared to other people, I'm less inclined to sing praises to a holy high heaven about it. Well, I don't think other people feel that strongly about this episode, but y'all know what I mean. My main issue with this episode is probably predictable, because it's not the comedy, it's not the atmosphere, it's not the animation, it's not the characters, Yeah, it's the squeaks. Unfortunately, those squeaks get real annoying real fast, the same way they do for Mr. Krabs and Squidward. And now that I'm considering it, I think that's something that will turn me off of episodes real quick. Like, when I'm feeling the same or even more, like, unpleasant emotions than the characters are, like, sadness is usually an exception to this, depending on how it's done, but, like, if I'm feeling as frustrated, even more frustrated than characters on the screen, or, like, as annoyed or as disgusted or as embarrassed, etc., like, then there's a good chance my rating of an episode is going to go down, down, down. Like, I don't know. That's an interesting little trend. But anyway, see, other than the squeaks, like, this episode's great. I adore the atmosphere of this episode. Like, being a partial retelling of that Edgar Allan Poe story, like The Telltale Heart, which, by the way, fun fact, this episode is a reimagining of The Telltale Heart, if you didn't know, like, particularly the last few minutes. Anyway, like, it's got some spooky vibes to match with that story, like with the scene of Mr. Krabs in the window, and then of course, like, we have the absolute chaotic craziness of the ending, which I always find myself laughing at, and on that note, like, it's true that this episode is decently funny. Like, it's not chock full of jokes, and there's plenty of good stuff here. So, like the ending I just mentioned, like, that was excellent, and, like, the scene between SpongeBob and Squidward is great, but there aren't really too many outstanding jokes here, which does hurt the episode a little bit for me. It's entertaining in other ways, though. Like, this episode is really expressive, like, especially for Mr. Krabs. Like, he has so many, like, crazy faces. I'm definitely going to put one in this video. One of the ones that isn't as well known, just because, you know, I think we can all think of, like, the one where he's, like, screaming and his mouth looks like a big wobbly thing. I don't know how to describe it. I'm pretty sure that scream happens multiple times an episode, and, you know, that's fair. Why not reuse that animation? But, like, I remember, like, there's that one that became a meme where he has, like, his claw up on his face and his eyes are all circular. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of crazy expressions from him in this episode. So that's pretty cool. And also, like, Squeaky Boots is just animated excellently in general and has some great visual gags. Like, I'm especially thinking about, like, that scene between SpongeBob and Squidward, like, when SpongeBob's, like, bouncing and then Squidward's, like, bobbing along. Like, that has such smooth animation. And also, that moment is super memorable for me, probably because of this one video that makes me laugh every time I see it, and it's, like, always going on in my head. So, like, you know those memes where it's, like, what are you thinking about or whatever? Like, this video is always in my head. Like, you guys know, like, the stick bug meme with, like, some cut by, like, Trillville over it? You know, aka, like, the bed squeaking song? Yeah, so, like, it's that song over this moment with, like, bass boosting, I think, and it's hilarious. Like, I'm definitely gonna link both of those videos once I find them, because I like them, and I like sharing things. Anyway, did y'all know that this episode is Pearl's first appearance? Yeah, I know, hard to believe, but yep, it is. Squeaky Boots also shows us just how far Mr. Krabs' penny pinching methods go, so I suppose that this episode is also good for establishing some characterization, as is the common story for season 1 episodes, as I'm sure y'all have gotten by now. And it's kind of funny that I'm reviewing Squeaky Boots today, because I just reviewed Whale of a Birthday and I mentioned Squeaky Boots in that review, so that's kind of funny. Anyway, SpongeBob is also just, like, extremely cute in this episode. Him with his, like, eponymous boots is just so adorable, and I love the little moment between Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob when SpongeBob believes that he lost the boots. Like, the voice acting for SpongeBob is just so adorable here, even if he is super distraught. The cuteness of SpongeBob with his boots really staves off much of the feelings of annoyingness I might have from seeing him with those accursed boots, so that's good. And we also get a Tom appearance in this episode, which is a win for me because that's my favorite background character along with Fred, so, you know, I love me some Tom. Anyway, with all of that said, all in all, Squeaky Boots really is a great episode, but I think the squeaking is just a bit too annoying for my taste. It really, like, this episode really should not have been focused on, like, those squeaking sounds so much. And I think the sound is definitely much less annoying than it could have been, at least, but it was still too much on the annoying side for me. So that's why this episode is gonna be, like, bumped down into the good tier, coming in with a score of 7.5 out of 10. As per usual, I'm going to be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine, and this time I actually do have some, so everyone clap. So while I was writing up the script for these reviews, I was thinking about how for, like, Squeaky Boots, my opinion on that episode hasn't really changed much over the years. Like, my forum review on this episode was actually an update to a review I wrote back in 2018, and when I wrote the updated review, I said I felt somewhat similarly to my 2018 self. And thinking about it now, a couple months later, I think I felt more than somewhat similarly. Honestly, I think I feel the exact same as I did in 2018. It just seemed different because now I'm writing these extremely detailed reviews, 4 or 5 years later, and they cover so much more than the reviews of years past. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think one of the reasons why I like writing these detailed reviews so much is because I'm able to consider episodes in their entirety. I think doing that makes my assessment more fair, more comprehensive. And also, of course, I just love talking SpongeBob, so literally, why wouldn't I spend paragraphs upon paragraphs, or in today's case, minutes upon minutes, talking about my feelings on certain episodes? If you really think about it, this is like a writing exercise. Well, anyway, that big bit of rambling was about all I've got to say to close out this review. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.